Hello? MJ? What do you want?
No, sorry, it looks like we're gonna have to run something else on the cover. I don't know, maybe the expressionist piece?
Don't call back!
I think it's safe to say at this point that the symbiote is definitely going to be a problem in more ways than one. But regardless, welcome back, true believers and all you spectacular Spidey fans, to another very exciting Marvel Spider-Man 2 related video. And today it is going to be another laid-back discussion where I am going to have a in-depth conversation with one of my amazing YouTube friends going over Marvel Spider-Man 2 and more specifically what we are expecting to occur within the narrative and mainly in the relationships between Peter Parker and Miles Morales, both in and out of their Spider-Man suits. And today, I am joined by the one and only Irogen, who you have seen in several videos in the past with me. Thank you so much for joining me today. How you doing?
I am doing so good. Thank you so much for having me on, as always. It's been amazing to talk about Spider-Man with you over the last few years, even. We go way back in talking about this stuff on our channels. It's been great to develop our friendship together. And it's been great to see the improvements that Insomniac has made to their Spider-Man game. So I'm really excited to talk about the dynamic that we could be seeing between Peter and Miles in Spider-Man 2.
And if all you viewers are looking for even more awesome Spidey content from Irogen and myself, we also did a collab on his channel, which you can definitely check out if you haven't already by the time this video is out, which I also will leave as a link in the description. But for this video, we are going to specifically talk about the main narrative that everyone at Insomniac has been highlighting within the context of Marvel Spider-Man 2, and more specifically from the creative director of the game himself, Brian Intihar, saying that one of the biggest reasons why this is called Marvel Spider-Man 2, beyond it being a sequel, is specifically due to how Peter and Miles are both Spider-Man within this game, and that their stories are going to both highlight their each individual characters while also intertwining them together throughout the core campaign that we will be experiencing. And of course, this ranges from Peter having to deal with the black suit, Miles trying to deal with the ramifications of Peter wearing the black suit, and potentially seeing some issues that Peter is dealing with while wearing the symbiote that Miles might inevitably have to fix. And of course, the biggest theory that everyone has right now is that at some point within Marvel Spider-Man 2, we are most definitely expecting a black suit Peter and Miles Morales fight with them as Spider-Man. Whether that happens near the middle of the game, or potentially if it ends up being somehow the final boss battle of the game, which would be a crazy twist, we have no idea, but that inevitable conflict that is rising with the black suit is most definitely consuming Peter throughout the context of the gameplay demo, and will hopefully show the flaws that Peter is dealing with while encompassing all of the symbiote's darker traits throughout the entirety of the Marvel Spider-Man 2 story, and how Miles might have to deal with that and potentially stop him for doing anything out of left field that, of course, would send him down an extremely darker path than what he already is seemingly going down.
In many ways, I actually feel like Brian Intihar has already answered a lot of these questions kind of under the radar, and I think that he's given a lot of details as far as what we can expect. He's already mentioned that, yes, there is a lot of tension between Peter and Miles, and we've already seen that in that gameplay demo. We saw that Peter doesn't really seem to be as invested in his dynamic with Miles Morales. He seems very willing to just do things himself. He's in a more brute force mood rather than the more tactical training that he gave Miles. He's more in the mood to just punch through things, get things done. He's willing to let people get hurt if that's what it takes, it seems. And I mean, it seemed like that was very early on when he has the symbiote. So it's pretty inevitable that it's only going to go downhill from there. And obviously, there is another playable Spider-Man, which provides a ton of potential for a boss fight, whether playing as Miles facing Peter or playing as Peter facing off against Miles. There is clearly going to be some point of this game where they go down separate paths. I think that that is why both are completely playable and are being given such a lead role in the story. I also do think that it's going to be interesting to see Peter's dynamics with other characters throughout the world, such as Mary Jane or Miles' mom, Rio Morales, or Black Cat, and know that he is not exactly in his right mind here, but especially seeing Peter and Miles out of costume and interacting, and then seeing how that builds up to what I would consider an almost inevitable on-screen confrontation. Now, is there the chance that maybe that's not where the story goes? Sure. but I think it would be a huge missed opportunity after allowing us to play as Miles Morales and Peter Parker in previous games to not let them clash and let us play through that.
And I totally agree, because one of the biggest strengths that we have seen from Insomniac in both of their previous Spider-Man games so far, with Peter's own individual game and Miles' own individual game, is really making us as the player come to love their own interpretations of these characters and establish the relationship that Peter and Miles have with one another. This mainly ranged from Peter helping Miles before he even got powers while trying to mentor him in the Fee Shelter, even furthermore mentoring him as a bigger brother type of figure while they are both Spider-Man, even though Miles was by himself the majority of the time in Miles' standalone game. Peter would still check up on Miles frequently, give him very helpful support, but also encourage Miles to do his own thing as his own unique Spider-Man. And having those two different personalities clash with one another is easily going to be one of the biggest highlights of the story. But taking that a step further by having the player physically confront either Miles or Peter, depending on who Insomniac makes the player play as during that point in time during the narrative, is really going to make it a very struggling situation that we will have to try and overcome, either by helping Peter as we play as Miles to try and separate Peter from the symbiote, or, as a bit of a twist, we might end up having to fight Miles while controlling Black Suit Spider-Man, which would be very emotional for a lot of diehard Miles fans out there, and even people who love this version of Peter Parker, but again, would offer that extreme amount of emotional conflict that we have already experienced in Insomniac's previous games, with battling Dr. Octopus as Peter, and even Miles having to fight his childhood best friend of the Tinkerer, who inevitably sacrificed herself by the end of Miles' story. Having both of these characters fully fleshed out thanks to their own games, but having to fight one another, would easily be one of the biggest standout moments throughout the entire campaign, but would also add even more depth if somehow Insomniac ends up incorporating the brand new instant switching mechanic that we saw in the gameplay demo and that we know we will be able to utilize within the open world. But if that ends up happening during this hypothetical boss battle where we might have to instantly switch between fighting Peter as Miles to then fighting Miles as Peter, would just be an absolutely genius move on Insomniac's part to completely blend the gameplay mechanics with how they want to tell their own story by showcasing both Peter and Miles' perspectives during that point in time.
One of the big things that I feel that this could add to the story and the gameplay is the fact that somewhere deep inside Peter's subconscious, he knows that what he's doing is too far and too much, and allowing the player to have their hands on the controller while Peter is beating up Miles or doing things that we don't want to see him do, even if he's just won a battle against Kraven and is brutally beating the crap out of him, there is going to come a point where, as the player, we're going to be thinking, Peter, stop, don't do this. And if we are allowed to do that at the moment that Peter himself realizes that he's going too far, that's going to create some inevitable catharsis and relief when Peter is finally on the same page as the player. And that could be really interesting to play those two things against each other. The player who feels that Peter is going too far, and Peter who's just going too far. And we have to be the ones to control him in order to progress in the story.
And especially taking into consideration with what Insomniac have already said about the symbiote itself, really making Peter feel a sense of addiction of power, and also the strength that the symbiote provides while he is in that black suit state. And if he needs to try and use the symbiote to further protect people from his own point of view, but Miles is maybe trying to stop Peter from going over the edge if he may end up trying to go after Kraven and potentially kill him for hurting those closest to him, since he's going to be hunting both Peter and Miles. Miles might try and get in the way from stopping Peter from killing Kraven, only to then make Peter go even further off the deep end thanks to the symbiote's influence and unintentionally go after Miles as a result of that, which would really give a whole lot of depth to the connection that both Peter and Miles have as friends, but also as superhero partners. Allowing the player to either choose who they want to play as may not have as much impact as Insomniac doing what I believe would be the best of both worlds, like what we already said, is switching between them both during this fight to show both of their viewpoints on the situation and make the player even question who's in the right and who's in the wrong. Maybe Peter might have a legitimate reason for trying to go after someone in the black suit, maybe going a step too far in that darker mindset. But we as the player, seeing what Peter might do throughout the campaign, might end up siding with him, or vice versa, might end up siding with Miles and say, no, this black suit isn't good. We got to get Peter out of it right now before he causes any more harm to others. That constant back and forth is easily going to be one of the biggest drawing points of not only this hopefully inevitable boss fight between Peter and Miles, or Miles and Peter, but also that relationship that might further strain and falter and become less prevalent. Peter and Miles might end up distancing from one another due to the symbiote negatively impacting that already positive relationship that Peter established with Miles in both of the previous games, to then have it completely dismantle everything that Peter has worked so hard to maintain throughout his journey as being Spider-Man, and guiding Miles on this right path to be his own individual superhero.
It really is an amazing medium that video games have cultivated, because they allow us to experience the story. When we watch a movie like Spider-Man 3, we obviously get to watch the symbiote story arc, but here we are going to get to feel the power ourselves, and we're going to feel wronged when Peter feels wronged, when Craven goes and, I don't know, kills Black Cat or does something of that caliber that really pisses off Peter. As the player, we're going to get to feel really pissed off too, and we'll even be able to feel like Peter is justified in what he's doing. The game could really flip the theory on its head that we've had for so long of Miles realizing that Peter is going too far, giving us a lot of gameplay as Miles trying to stop Peter. And instead, Miles could become the voice of reason for us as well. They could really push us into that feeling of addiction and power fantasy. And I'm really excited to see what they could bring. They could even have an unexpected twist where maybe Peter unbonds with the suit at some point, and then they're going up against a villain that he needs the suit in order to win, and just says, sorry, Miles, I need it. Like, there's no way we can win without it. Where does it go from there? Maybe that's where the boss fight happens. Maybe it is faster at corrupting Peter because he's addicted to it and he's relapsed. There's a really great opportunity to deepen the story of the symbiote and the direction that it takes not only Peter, but those who are close to Peter and who are going to see how it impacts him. The great thing about what Insomniac has done with this IP and this character is this is really the first time in video game form that we've gotten to experience so much of Peter's story as well. We've had video games that have done the symbiote suit story arc. We've played Web of Shadows, we played Spider-Man 3, but we didn't get to really see how much it was impacting Peter's personal relationships, because video games and their stories have evolved since then. Now we do get to see a lot of those behind the scenes moments, those out of costume moments where rather than playing as a superhero, you're just playing as Peter Parker, and in the first game he was trying to do the right thing, but getting to see how that changes his relationships and his dynamics is going to be what carries this story so far. In a game like Spider-Man 3, for example, there were a few clunky cutscenes where he was like telling off MJ or acting more rude than usual to the people he was helping. Here, we're legitimately going to get to see Peter out of costume interacting with people that we have interacted with over the course of the Insomniac Spider-Man saga, and see how he just dismantles those relationships that, like you mentioned, he's worked so hard to maintain. It really makes the prospect of playing this game not only very exciting and very interesting, but also it's kind of intimidating as well. And I am a bit nervous just to see how hard some of these scenes are to watch, because we're so endeared to these characters and Peter himself. So to see him lose it is going to be a really rough pill to swallow.
And we just can't wait to see what Insomniac will do by the time we actually play this story for ourselves, by the time October 20th rolls around. But with all that said, everybody, that's the video that both Irogen and I have for you today. Let us know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. What do you think of this inevitable fight that will occur between Peter Parker and Miles Morales while Peter is completely encompassed in the black suit symbiote? Or do you think the story might go a completely different direction and Miles might be the one who ends up with the symbiote instead of Peter? We have no idea, but Insomniac clearly has all the liberty in the world to do whatever they want, and we can't wait to see what will be next. But until next time, true believers, thank you all so much for watching. Stay spectacular, Spidey fans. Leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you did enjoy, and for more Marvel Spider-Man 2 videos like this in the future. And I cannot thank the one and only Irogen enough for joining me on this video today, because without him, it wouldn't be possible. Thank you so much, dude. I had a wonderful time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to your audience for watching. You have a wonderful audience who is so supportive. And I cannot wait to see what else you do as you cover this topic, and hopefully we have more collaborations in the future.
And until that time comes, everybody, thank you all so much for watching. Stay spectacular, Spidey fans. And until next time, peace out.